Right, and here we go. Hello, everybody watching. How many we get watching tonight, we shall see. I know there's going to be a lot of shows on tonight because there's going to be a lot of pissed off people out here. So, Tom, when you decide to get here, he will be here. He's running 15 minutes late, like he usually is. I mean, I think my man would be too late. He'd be late for his own funeral, but that's a different discussion. Right. With me, I have a good mate of mine, Mia. How are we doing?
Yeah, ain't too bad. Not too bad, Dan. How are you?
Well, we'll come to that one in a minute. And then we have Jacoda. How are we doing, my man?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. It's just a shame about the result, but we're going to get into that shortly.
We're coming to that one soon, yeah? So, just to start it off, I don't know if you two see it because I missed it. I mean, I'm not going to go into Tottenham straight away because that's just depressing. I wanted to watch that Chelsea-Man City game, but I was out a lot longer than I expected to be. Did either you two watch it?
Yeah, what a cracker of a game. My God, that was so entertaining.
I literally turned it on as he scored the fourth goal. I was like, I really wanted to watch that game. I wanted to see Chelsea get a good hiding. But from what I see and the report of it, and there's a banging game there, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. It's one of the best. It's probably the best game I've seen so far this season. Literally was end to end. It could have been 5-5, 6-5. They just were kept on going. They were relentless. Both of them were. So yeah, it was a cracking game of football.
I had a feeling. Well, that's half the reason I brought that up first, because now we go to the other side of it, since it is a Tottenham page. What happened with Wolves? Now, obviously, I've got my opinions on it and that, but I'm going to go to you two first, and I will start with Mia. What happened from start to finish? We are listening.
We got eaten up in it, like that's what the Wolves do, Char. We just didn't create enough, Dan. Like that first few minutes, we had like 7 minutes where we were good. I'll put it down because I write down notes. 7 minutes. It took 7 minutes for them to get back into the game after we had scored. And we just never looked like scoring. I'm going to be honest. We just didn't create anything, like a few chances here and there. But when you look at it, I didn't need the stats, but when you look at the stats, it backs up what I said. We were very, very poor. And yeah, we switched off at the very end with our defence, but I don't think that was the biggest issue because for all them minutes, we had like over 90 minutes that they still could have scored and we didn't create anything. So
I mean, with a lot of that,
was a big issue.
I think you just hit the nail on the head. I mean, seriously, I don't think. Do you know what? That was just as pathetic as the end of last season in my eyes. Right, so I come to you, Jay Coda, mate. What happened?
It took me. I must admit, I was steaming at the end of it, but I sort of had to take some sort of time away from it and really sort of reflect.
Mate, let me just stop you a second. Let me just start. You say steaming at the end of it. You know what? I know exactly what you mean. I was smoking a fag. That second goal went in. I stood up. I had to walk out the front because if I didn't walk out the front, I'd have probably put my hand through something. Go on, mate. Keep going.
No. To be fair, honestly, I was, I was just absolutely steaming because I just sat there and just couldn't believe how we done it. But then I took some time out to really sort of reflect, and it hit me. It really did hit me. In the last, in sort of, from the game we saw against Chelsea to this, we'd gone from Ange ball to Conte ball. This was, if anybody had missed last year and wanted to know what it was like watching
Back to the Future
us under Conte, just that game summed it all up. It absolutely was. It was got the goal early, just sat deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, and just basically said to Wolves, just break us down, totally against everything that Ange just told these players to do. And I mean, to be fair, I was a little bit critical of him, in terms of some of the people that he put on the pitch. But ultimately, one thing that I've just read literally before you came to me was only one player that he signed played yesterday, which was Brennan Johnson. And it showed. It absolutely showed
to me.
Yeah,
go on. No, you were talking.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, I mean, the fact that you just look at it and you just feel that we all knew it was coming. We all knew that this performance was coming. We'd gone away with it up until now, and 4 players had just been wiped out of that team, and they make such a difference because you can just see the difference between the belief in what Ange is trying to do to, oh, we better go back to what Conte was trying to teach us because we can't do that. That's not within our remit. And as I said, for the 4 that came in, I don't feel it was a glowing reference for them. And I must admit, I'm a little bit concerned in terms of what we do going to from now to the winter break, especially as we've got, as I said, the 4 players that we missed was so important. Yes, some of them will come, 2 of them will come back.
I'll come to that. I'll come back to that point there. I'll come back to that one, yeah? Right, so I'm trying to quit smoking at the moment, yeah? Been slowing down quite a bit. I mean, the habit I have, the way I smoke on here, people think I'm a chain smoker. I'm really not. It's just as soon as I'm down the pub or something and start talking about football, next thing I know, I smoke 20 of them. And it's exactly the same as me on here. And I've been slowing down. But then I start talking about Spurs. There we go. I need it. So what I'll go to before then is, right, we've got Michael watching us. Big up Dan E. Big up Mike. How we doing, my mate? Cat, big up Dan E. Aussie in the motor. Banging game. Buzzing. Yeah, our one wasn't for a shame, innit? Mark Cousins, how you doing, mate? Big up everyone. What a game. Palmer was immense. From what I heard, he definitely done a good show against us, didn't he? And Mia saying hello to you, mate. And right, from here. Oh, it's a big message, this one. Let's see this one quickly. We are in big trouble now. Next week, that game v Villa is a game for 4th. And at the moment, they're only a point behind us. I'm not too sure we can even win at home. We're lost without that entire first 11, basically. Well,
I think to be fair, it shows how weak it is that actually we're lost really without 3 or 4 players. You know,
we was lost without one player. One player we was lost without, really, yeah. I mean, because as soon as Maddison was off of there, no imagination. I mean, I'm going to bring it round to all of this and what, because this ain't going to be a 5-minute one, yeah. There's so much. Everyone's got their own opinions. We know that. I mean, that's one thing we all love and hate about football. We all see it through our own 2 eyes, but a lot of us see different things. I personally think this was a game where he could have actually done a bit of messing about with, and he could have got he would have got forgiven for it, because I think this is the game that was coming. Like you said, I think nearly every Spurs person I've spoken to was almost expecting this to happen. And especially when they put in that goal, you were literally sitting there just like, come on then, where's the one to finish us off? And
to be honest, I totally agree. I mean, I was sitting there and I thought, if you needed a game where Ange could have turned around and put, I think if every Spurs fan that looked at that team sheet and it's in Alfie Dorrington, Ashley Phillips, and Jamie Donnelly in that team, I don't think a single person would have had a problem with it. I think they've got, yeah, okay, good. You're actually building on something. What you've done is what every manager previously has done. Once they've lost their burst players, they've gone back to what has failed time and time again. And that I found really disappointing. I would have rather we'd lost 2-3-4-1 and had those players in to show them this is an opportunity for you, because we're not going to go back to these ones. We wanted them out the door. They are going to go out the door. They're not going to play. They're not good enough. They've shown that clearly. You know, we need to show these younger players there is a pathway. This was a golden opportunity for the under-21s who've been absolutely smashing it, right, top the table, to show them, look, this is your pathway. When players come out, you can step in.
But
and, you know, we didn't do that.
Do you know, the one thing I will say is that in the past, he's taken like a cast of Vickers from us and played him. I think he'll play them if he thinks they're ready. Now, to get from the under 21s to the men's team is a massive, massive step up. And if you're going to put these players on and they're going to have a game where they're getting absolutely battered, I just don't think that's very good for the players. Like when you look at our players that have done well, who are young, that have come through, not many have, but they've all gone out on loan and got experience. There's nothing like getting game experience in the first team. Like I think chucking them in under 21s and just chucking them in is probably not preferable. Phillips is a bit different because he's had a bit more experience with Blackburn and he's had a few games, so I think he might be slightly more ready, perhaps. But I just think that if you're just chucking these kids in there, I just don't think it's a good idea personally. I think that I can see why people would want to do it, but if you think about it, it's a big step. It is a massive step, and not often do they just come in under 21s, no loan move, and just come in and get chucked in. It doesn't often happen. You know,
it doesn't. To be fair, what I would say, it doesn't happen at Tottenham, and that's where the ultimate problem has come into it.
Bang.
You look at what other clubs have done. You know, I watched a documentary about Alex Ferguson. He had no problem taking a whole load of under 21s. You know, Phil Neville, Gary Neville, David Beckham. You know, all of them. He brought them right through.
They had. I
don't think that's the best example.
Yeah, they had older players with them as well. They didn't just have youngsters. There was still older, like there was Cantona was there at the time.
Yes.
You know, that they did have older players around them.
Yes.
So
look at it this way. Hang on a second. Hang on a sec. I've got to go with you both here, yeah? And I think a lot of us were saying the same thing there, yeah? Now, I don't think he should have chucked 3 of them in there. I think that would have been maybe a bit too much. But I'm definitely going to agree with both of you here on the aspect of I would have played a different system there, yeah? I mean, me personally, I would have took a bit of a gamble there on something that I personally want to see. Would it have worked? Who knows? But one way or another, we were still going to have at least 3 players we didn't want on that pitch, whether we liked it or lumped it. Personally, I would have definitely give Phillips a go in the middle, and I would have probably had Dyer with him. Out of choice, do you know what? I might as well have just gone and bought a statue and just stuck it there because he'd have probably been better at deflecting the ball. That is how useless I think Dyer is. I think Davis actually had a very good game. I mean, no one was expecting him to do anything, but I think he had a very good game. But I would have stuck him out on the left, Dyer in the middle, Phillips in the middle. I'd have stuck Emerson on the right. The middle spoke for itself, really. Now, the one thing we definitely missed out of that, more than anything, was playmaking. Nothing was created in that game. Nothing at all. I mean, what was it? We had 1 shot on target after we scored the bloody goal, and that was like near the end of the game. I'm still thinking I would have personally gone and stuck Kulusevski in the middle. I'd have played a 4-2-3-1, played Kulusevski in the middle, Johnson on the left, Porro on the right. Now, the reason and Son up front goes without saying. The reason I bring this up again, I've had this debate with a few people on here. And I've had a few people tell me I see your point. A few people tell me you ain't got a clue. You know, it is, everyone sees it different, yeah? My man Porro went and done again what I keep saying he will do. We can't cross a ball for shit. Come love nor money. Our main crosser of the ball, Perisic, he ain't there. The only other one we got who can cross a ball is Porro. Now, what happened with Liverpool? We got that late goal. We got the winner, yeah? Some say it was a lucky goal. I say it was luck we made, yeah? But what happened? Kulusevski came back a little bit. Porro overlapped him, got the ball to Porro, drilled it through, straight in the back of the net. What happened there? Kulusevski come back a bit, come inside a bit. Lovely back heel, by the way. Straight to Porro, drills it across, bang, straight in the back of the net. This is why I keep saying, when we're in situations like this, I think he should give a couple of things a go. And now, I still think Porro, I think he's made up there. But he is our wing back, whatever else and that. But that's the sort of system I would have played. For the sheer, we've got to push forward somehow. We've got to have someone who can pass the ball forward. And I think...
Do you know,
we just don't have that in there. I mean, Basuma's been terrible. I think we're going to that one in a minute. Mia, how do you see it? What sort of formation would you have done and players would you have done? And what do you think about all the young players in there?
I think that probably putting a Phillips in there would have been preferable.
Or not in there.
Yeah, I think Phillips and Dyer, I would have been okay with that. I wouldn't have played Hotspur because the problem we've got, Dan, is he's not very good on the ball. So when you've got somebody who isn't very good on the ball and they're in the field and they're not creative, and then you've got Basuma and Sarr who are more like the workhorses, they win the ball back. Sarr was driving forward more, but he wasn't that great at it. If Lo Celso, I think if he was able to come on, I think he should have started, because I think that would have been, he's very good on the ball. He can get the ball, turn the ball. I think he's just got that skill. He's just a bit more skillful on the ball. So I would have personally played Lo Celso instead of Hotspur, because when we saw it before, when we had that midfield that was dry like a cracker, it was like, no, it sticks to the top of your mouth. It's like, that was our midfield. And the problem is if we're going to try and play out from the back, we haven't got any players that can take the ball. We haven't got, like, it just didn't work. We've got no connectivity. And that's the problem we had with Conte. With Hotspur there, it just dried our midfield out completely, because Maddison's the chaos player. He gets the ball, he looks up, he twinkle toes, he's just here, there and everywhere. And we didn't have anybody like that. So that, for me, was a huge issue. And that's where I think the main issue is that midfield. Because I think our defence, like I say, up until 90 minutes, I think that they did all right. They weren't, we let them come on to us way too much. I said they were okay.
Mia,
I'm not saying they were good.
If they could finish better, we would have been screwed by then.
Do you know what? They didn't take their chances. Like, they had so many free kicks, Dan, corners, hitting the first man. Now, listen, I understand. We allowed them to come on to us. But what I'm trying to say is that the lack of creativity was a huge problem for us. We just weren't creating nothing, like literally nothing. And I think that midfield, missing James Maddison, was something that made that so. And I think for the next game, I would like to see something change in that midfield. We cannot play Hotspur in that midfield for me. I'll put Phillips and like I say, I'll put Bentancur.
Bentancur ain't really one for starting yet, I don't think. But then we might have been able to start. I mean, yeah.
If he can come on, he can come on for a bit, can't he?
Yeah. But he did towards the end. But the other thing you can say with that, apart from the whole team was a mess. I mean, Son, where was he? All right, people will say Son didn't have the ball put out to him. He didn't have the ball passed to him, whatever. Yeah, all right, I saw him running about and that, but this is one where we definitely missed a Harry Kane who can do a bit of both worlds, isn't it? Come back and make something for himself. I think that's one thing that Son is definitely not capable of, and that's making his own chances. Nowhere near to the same extent. He's one, give him the ball and he'll do his bit, but he ain't really one to come back, get the ball and then set himself up as such. But then how many can do that? That midfield, yeah, there was just no creativity in it whatsoever. Absolutely nothing. Now, Højbjerg, everybody knows, I do stick up for Højbjerg. I think he's, as a squad player, I think he's good enough. But that game he had was absolutely disgusting. And I can pretty much say that about most of the people on the pitch. But I think he had an absolute stinker of a game. And again, like you say, no creativity in there whatsoever. And that was one of the main things that showed. And I also think you had the midfield where it's more defensive-minded to an extent, coming back on itself again, us sitting back. And
yeah. So the other problem...
Johnson, I don't think he had a good game either. I think apart from the goal he scored, how many chances did he have to make a run with it? And he didn't take it. So I'll come with you in a sec, Mia. Right. What do you think, Jacob? What do you think about all that? Right.
I mean, as I sort of said, I think
we had no playmaker. Was that the main problem, do you think? Or was
well,
this
I think it caused a problem in terms of both ends, really, because it didn't really give us much of an out in terms of, someone to hold the ball up and someone to try and just, like we used to see with Eriksen, someone who put his foot on the ball and just really maybe either try and slow the game down or try and take it forward and actually try and bring others into it and maybe create something. The problem is always going to be, as we saw last year, if you try and sit on a 1-goal lead, we haven't got the resources at the back to be able to do it. So, I get what Mia was saying in terms of obviously having both of them there as centre backs. Personally, I still would have, but I do think Jamie Donnelly should have played that game. I think he should have started. I think it would have been, that would have been a real opportunity for the club and for Ange to sort of be like, look, I've got somebody there who, can show and potentially take an opportunity here to move up from the under-21s to the main stage. So that was where I think was the most frustrating, because the middle of the park was just getting completely overrun towards the end. It was almost like, let's just take the 1-0 and be done with it. And that is not what Ange is meant to be about at all, So I was just very surprised we even saw that, really, and very sort of disappointed.
Hang on a sec there, yeah. Sorry to interrupt you. What you just said there, yeah. I mean, I've heard a couple of my mates mentioned it, and I've heard a couple of others mention it. This ain't what Ange is all about, yeah. Do you think that? Yes. Do you think what happened with Wolves was him sort of talking? If you get what I mean, in the aspect of, well, this is what's going to happen if we haven't got backup.
Just a question. It's talking, because ultimately, at the end of the day, he put on the pitch what he felt could try and work. I mean, it didn't really matter who, apart from Jamie Donnelly. I don't think there was anybody else. And I get what Mia's saying about potentially throwing somebody in there without that experience into a daunting situation. But I don't think it really mattered, because it wasn't like he had a player there. It wasn't like Conte who turned around and, just wanted more. This, from what you can see with Postecoglou, it's very much somebody who wants to succeed, who wants to do well, and unfortunately has, and it wasn't a surprise. No, I don't think there was a single Tottenham fan when they saw that, Maddison and Van der Ven, Romero were all going to be out, and Udogie were going to be out of the game. I think all of us knew this was going to be tough. So
we had a good idea what was going to happen as well.
Yeah, we did. And to me, that was kind of the feeling that I got from it, was that, when you looked at what was happening, particularly with the Wolves game, it just sort of felt like almost as in, if we can just get something out of this and run, which we've seen from last year, players aren't capable. They're just not good enough. There's, as we saw, people could turn around and say, was he trying to, send a message? Well, the clearest message that he had was the fact that only one of the players he signed actually played, and he was with the players he had last time who had failed multiple managers. Let's not be around the bush. These are players
how long's Eric
failed managers going all the way back to Poch.
Exactly. How long's Dyer been here now? What, 9 years?
Exactly.
Something like
He's
that.
failed 4 managers. I
do definitely think it was his perfect chance to bring in 1 or 2 of the youngsters. But I definitely do agree with Mia on the aspect of, do you drop them in it head first? Yeah. I mean, for me, if you're ready, you're ready. And that's all there is to it, yeah?
But that's the whole point, Dan. Maybe they're not ready. That's what I'm saying.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, that's what I was going to say to you.
The only thing I would say to that is, how many times have we... It's very difficult to tell.
We don't take that risk, do we? Is it that we don't ever have any quality back there, or is it we just never have no one who will take a risk?
Yeah, well, you think about it with Mourinho and Conte, it was a case of, I need to win now, and I ain't going to trust these players. As simple as that.
Well,
that's the problem. But the fact is that Ange isn't like that, and we know. So if they're not ready and Ange isn't playing them, we know that they really ain't ready, because Ange would, like I say, he did with Carter Vickers. He took him from us and chucked him straight in at centre back. Like, he didn't care. So he will do it as long as he believes they're ready. So I think him not playing them shows that they're not ready. I'm going to trust in Ange, because he sees them more than what we do.
Right. I'm gonna trust in Ange, and I don't think that it's fair that he cops it for this, but I do think he does actually need to cop some of it for it. He definitely picked the team, and the way you got to stick up for him, I suppose, in his way, he didn't really have much option, did he? For a first-class player as such, for a first-team player. He didn't. I mean, that just shows how paper thin our depth is, how pathetic it is, because we just don't have any backup whatsoever. But at the end of that, you could see Son was absolutely shattered after about 70 minutes, I thought. You could see he was absolutely knackered. Why didn't he give, what's his name? Our Argentina young fella. Valise. Why didn't he give him a go? Like with 20 minutes left, 15 minutes left. I think he should have changed things a bit earlier than what he did as well, leaving it to the 60th minute. He could surely he could read that something was not going to go right here. Something was going to go very, very wrong. I think because most of us could see that at half time. We was lucky to come out at half time 1-0 up. I thought he might change something at half time, and he didn't. He kept it rolling. All right, he made the changes at 60 minutes, but he didn't change anything that changed anything, really. He didn't bring in a player that could play any different style as such. He just brought on the same sort of player. Yeah, basically. I mean, all right, Lo Celso came on. Nice shot, great save by them. But apart from that, didn't do nothing. Basuma, I think that's the worst game I've seen him play for us. But Mia, you got a thing about Basuma that we spoke about earlier before we came on in here. What's your opinion with Basuma on this in the past couple of games? Because first 6 games, he has been, I would say he has been our best player. All right, he hasn't been the playmaker and everything and that, but that man, when he works in midfield, it all works. He's brilliant back box to box. He's a good defender. He's good at going forward. I think he's our heartbeat in that midfield. You definitely realise it more when it's not there. But he weren't on form. He hasn't been on form for 4 games. Mia, what's happening with Basuma at the moment?
I think that yellow card has been hanging over his head, man. I think he knows he got that red, and he got the 2 yellows, and then obviously it led to the red. And he knew that he had that hanging over him, so he hasn't been playing as himself, because he knew the next time he does anything, he's going to end up missing games. So I feel like he has been holding back a little bit because he knows that he's got that. I think that's, for me, is why. I hope that's why. And like I said to you earlier, I think that some of the things that he's got yellows for, diving, talking back to the ref, they're things that can be fixed quite easily, I think. I don't think it's like a real attitude issue. It's more of a behaviour, and I think you can correct that fairly easy. I think that Ange just needs to have some words with him. So once he does have words with him, once he's cleared, he's done his ban, I'm hoping that we'll see the full Basuma back again. I really do.
Okay. So what's your opinion on Basuma then? What's been his problem over the past 4 games? What do you reckon?
I think for me, looking at it's a bit of that. You know, I do understand it. You can see that he's sort of playing within himself a little bit, trying to sort of stay on for as long as possible. But I do feel as well that he seems to sue having somebody in front of him, almost like as a protection. You know, if you look at what Maddison did, it was someone who played straight in front of him, and it made his job simple. I think the problem is for Basuma is that when you're asking him, and I think without Maddison there, where it's almost a case of trying to get him to do more roles than what is within him. In terms of asking him to be the mop up, with Sarr and tidying up there, and then passing it forward to Maddison to do, the creative work. I think the problem is once you take him out of the equation, you're in a situation where you're turning around and actually having to say to him, we need you to do more, because particularly with the 3 that were on in that middle, I don't know who the creative player was. I don't know who was meant to be the creative player, and that is the problem. When you put in a situation where you're playing Sarr, Højbjerg, and Basuma, he's having to almost maybe
but that's only problems
take that
but
on.
That's one game. He's been off for a few games. We've had Maddison. It hasn't been that.
He hasn't been right for 4 games, has he? Easy. The first 6 games, you could have said he's easily one of the best around at the moment. But after that, it's gone totally wrong. Now, what I think he should have done, and a lot of people disagreed with me, others did agree. I think he should have made sure he got the yellow card on purpose so that he missed the Palace game, because I think Højbjerg could have covered that nicely, and then been there for the Chelsea game. The Chelsea game was the main issue, I would have thought, yeah? And do you think it's that the yellow card hanging over him why he slowed down and that? Or do
Could be.
Because he hasn't been great with Maddison in front of him of late either.
Yeah, it could be. It's a difficult one, that it really is, because ultimately, as you say, it's where has he been fitting in? But then obviously, you know, maybe he's gotten complacent. You know, that's one of the things we've seen with Tottenham players, is that when they look at what is behind them, you know, and they look at the likes of Skip and, you know, is he going to come in and what have you? Is Ange going to trust Skip to come in and play Skip and Sarr in that middle? You know, and to be fair, we've seen them play well together. So, you know, it is a case of, you know, is he getting too big for his boots? And that's one of the things we need to make sure that, you know, hopefully with Bentancur coming in, that actually we're going to, maybe he will turn around in this suspension and maybe turn around and play Bentancur for the Villa game, because that would be an interesting one to see how Bentancur and Sarr would start, so that way then he's got it realised actually he doesn't just come straight back into the team after a suspension.
Well, I think that's been one issue with Spurs for about 5 years now, isn't it? Like most of the first 11 sort of look over their shoulder and they couldn't care less because there's nothing behind them to scare them out of their position, is there? There's nothing that thinks that, right, if I take a footstep wrong, I'm going to be out for 3 or 4 games like you can at City, isn't it? And other teams. There's just absolutely no threat on the bench whatsoever, really, apart from what? Bentancur. I mean, I personally think that when he gets fit, he's going to take Sarr's place. I mean, before the game started and everything, a couple of days before, I'd even heard Ange say, like, they're still trying to work out what Sarr is. Is he a 6, an 8, or a 10? Well, one thing I think we can all definitely answer now is he's not a number 10.
No.
Because they did actually try that with him. What do you reckon, Mia? Do you reckon they actually tried him as a number 10 for a bit? Because I reckon they did.
Yeah, no, they did. They definitely did. I think, though, maybe it's the personnel that he's with that makes it more difficult for him to be a 10. I don't know. I'm just surmising, because don't forget he had Hotspur, I think, and not the best of Basuma. So I wonder if that could be something, because in general, Sarr is pretty good. He wins the ball back. He's got legs like mad.
He's a very good player.
He runs, he's everywhere. He's just, you know, he's putting out fires all over the place. And he did a few times, did like little runs and stuff. So I think that potentially, possibly, but I think he has to have the right personnel in the midfield with him. And I think Hotspur is just not that guy. And no, like you were saying about backups, listen, if we had to get rid of Skip and Hotspur and get someone else to have on that bench, and the Celso, and then have another 2 people to basically compete, our midfield actually wouldn't be that bad competitive wise, and neither would our wingers, because don't forget we've got a lot of wingers out at the moment. It's just the back line for me that's the biggest concern, that we haven't really got back up for. I think that's probably the one that we're lacking in the most. But yeah, I do think Sarr is a bit of a mixed bag at the minute. He's not on his A game, but I just don't think any of them have been for a couple of games, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I say, we're back to the point of we're sort of waiting for it to happen. I'm sort of like just clicking through the players one by one in my head. And like I say, Sarr did not have a great game either. He looked a bit lost out there. I mean, what do you think they were trying to do with Sarr?
I think for me, it's kind of that difficulty of, you know, when you don't have the likes of an out-and-out playmaker on there. I think it was just any one of the 3 who can do it, who can actually try and step up and try and suit that role. And to be honest, I think all 3 of them came up short. I don't think it's something that any one of them, and to be fair, that would be something that potentially, you know, is on Ange, because when you look at the 3 that he had out there, I don't really think there was a lot of creativity. Well, we know there wasn't a creativity, but it almost the game plan wasn't to be creative. It was almost a case of just to try and stifle them and things like that. So
I just find that hard to picture with Ange being the manager. Now, just a quick one before we go on there. If anyone gives us a like and a subscribe, if I can say the bloody word properly, do us a favour. If you can, you can. If you can't, either way, just enjoy watching. Yeah, it just... I don't think he actually knew what he was meant to be doing on the pitch. He almost looked lost on the pitch. I mean, you could say most of the team
The problem
did,
being is, if you look at what Ange has been setting out and what he's been trying to achieve, that middle three was never going, or not, yeah, the middle three were never going to be able to help him do that. And I think that's the issue. And one of the things we've always seen with Tottenham down the years is, you know, the fact of, well, let's just make sure our first 11's all right. What about the backups? Nah, we'll just bodge it and just see how we get through. You know, particularly with what we're seeing and what we're sort of hearing about, particularly with January. I don't think it's just going to be till January. My worry is that we're going to see this right the way through till the summer. You know, and you know, for something that's been such a promising start and a real opportunity. Once again, the club is going to turn around and take the view of, well, we don't need to push for anything. You know,
an opportunity for what? Do you really think that we're going to win the league this year? Like, opportunity?
So, in terms of, if you take what is the most important thing to Daniel Levy, that is the Champions League. No matter what, that is his bread and butter. That to him is the golden ticket. And if you look at what. You know, the crazy thing about it is if he'd push the envelope, or if in January he pushed
hold on a minute. Hold on, let me get this straight. So you're saying that he isn't going to push in January to do that, even though you're stating that that's the thing that he wants to push on for.
No.
So that's not just trying to make sense of what you're trying to say.
Hang on a second. Sorry, I just got to interrupt you both here because I just want to do this quick. Tom, you can wait a minute because you're late. So, yeah. Just want to say, Norman Stanley Fletcher, what's this? Well done, Dan, for having an opinion that differs from Sava and living to the telltale. I'm not going to say nothing about no one. Everyone's got their own opinion. We all see it different. Thanks for the compliments. Appreciated. And that Alex Scott experience. Where's Tommy? Well, there he is, mate. Your man is there.
I apologise. Family.
Hang on. No. I haven't. I just said you're there. I didn't say talk. You can still wait a minute, mate. Yeah, that's just rude. Don't be rude. Come on, we're not rude in here. We're pissed off. Go on then.
So to answer back to what you're saying, when it comes to what Daniel Levy wants, there's two things that he loves. Well, one thing he loves more than anything, which is money. And if you look at what Tottenham need to get, what we all knew Tottenham needed to get into the top four, it was going to be a big overhaul, more than what has already been spent. So why would Daniel Levy not spend that in January? And well, the reason he won't is because he knows that will cost him more than in the summer. And the fact of it being is that he will view it as to bring in the players that he needs to kick this on, and for us to get into that top four, it will cost him more to do it now than it will do to do it in the summer, because everybody knows that January signings are more expensive.
But that makes no sense, because you're saying that he wants to get top four now, so therefore he's going against exactly what you've just said he wants to do.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, but listen, hold on a sec. Hold on a sec. Can you just hold on 2 minutes? Listen, I'm not someone who's a Levy defender at all, because I want better. But what people have is this narrative, and they always say the same things, and it never makes sense, because it always ends up contradicting themselves, because they say, oh, Daniel Levy's only interested in top four money, yet he's not going to do it in January. But that just contradicts exactly what you've just said, right?
Well, I can explain that.
No, hang on a sec. Fair point for the two of you. I want this one to carry on. I'm liking where this one's going.
I love this.
Hello, mate. How are we doing?
Dan, look, I'm supposed to... Dan's helped me out here, because I was supposed to run this show. I've got a few notes up. I've got a few battles up.
Show.
But I'm glad I didn't now. I'm glad I wasn't here to start with. Look, family problems. I was actually going to start today's show off with a 1 minute silence. So I think we'll end the show. We'll end the show with that, because let's not forget, Let's not forget. But I like this. I like Levy talk. We always have lots of Levy talk here. So just listening, what I'm getting here is, what I hear Justin saying, basically, from the brief time I've been on, is Levy won't invest other than to get into the top four.
So let's put it this way, right? The club would earn £120 million to get into the top four. Okay, that is the TV revenue that they will get. But for this club to actually buy the players it would need to do that will cost more in January, because we don't just need 1 or 2. We need about 3 or 4 new players in January. That it's a Levy will cost more. So to him, it would make more sense to wait until the summer when those players, whether it be they're out of contract or contracts have got a year left or things like that, so that he can then buy them cheaper. If he'd have bought Maddison in January when he wanted Maddison, we wouldn't have got him for 40 million. If you look at what Leicester were wanting, they were wanting 60, 70. They were asking for crazy money. And that is where Daniel Levy, as much as he wants top 4, will sacrifice that on the basis of he is not prepared to pay crazy money. The only other way he'll go round this is if, a bit like he does what he did with Pedro Porro or Dejan Kulusevski, where he turns around and does a form of a loan with an obligation to buy them in the summer. That will be the only way that he will do it. He will put it down as bases of paper. He will look at the facts and the figures, and he'll look at the fact that the amount of money Tottenham will make being in the Champions League against what they will have to spend to get into the Champions League will not make it worth it.
So I'm January premium. It's almost like you pay January
exactly.
premium. You have
and
to
as
pay...
much as he will want the Champions League, he will still turn around and look at it and think the balance sheet is more important than the Champions League. He's done it with everything. That is why, if you look back to the time when Leicester won the title, and in January he could have kicked us on to do that, he looked at the balance sheet, and for what Tottenham would have got for winning the Premier League, it would have not been worth what he would have had to pay to have taken the final part. It's what he's done throughout everything. You can look to the Champions League final, you can look to everything. It is all done on the basis of money. If it doesn't make him enough money to warrant it, he won't do it.
I think that you're basing things on projection, to be honest with you, because it sounds like you think you know Daniel Levy and exactly what he thinks, but none of us actually do, let's be honest. None of us are in those meetings if we're going to be completely genuine about our argument.
Well, unless you're a narcissist sociopath, you're not going to understand what Daniel Levy thinks.
Listen, if you the fact is that the Champions League, we got there, we got to finals, and that some of the decisions of the managers and the team made us not win those win them. For us to get into those, that means that Daniel Levy obviously isn't thinking that he doesn't want to get there, because obviously we have got there, but it has been down to other factors why we haven't done those things. Because I feel like there's a pie of blame, right? The biggest slice goes to Levy and the board, in my opinion. That gets a massive, massive slice, right? But then there are decisions and other factors of outside factors to why things happen. So to say that he doesn't want to win per se, I think is a bit of an assumption that he doesn't want to win.
But then,
can I put this forward? What you're saying there is this is why I disagree.
Based on you not knowing him either.
Because when we were at our very best, I think 15, 16, 16, 17, we had an opportunity to win the league. That's when the team was at its pinnacle, strongest. Back four was fantastic, keeper was fantastic. We had an opportunity. We went 500 days without signing a player. That was our best chance. That's the most in history. And unfortunately, any way you want to put it, players not performing in Champions League, he brings in every player, Levy. He brings in every manager. He brings in every director of football. It all goes through Levy. He brings them all in. So at the end of the day, if the players not up to it, if we're finishing 6th, 7th, 4th, and last season 8th, there's a massive regression. That's a huge regression.
Let me reverse that on you. So if it's all down to Daniel Levy, does that mean that you're going to...
Not all, but that is a big part of it.
But if you're going to do that, does that mean that the people he bought, everything he did, got us into a Champions League final? So therefore, everything he done in his he did was to get us there, and he did get us there. So if you're going to be fair and balanced with the argument, Tommy, because I like to be fair and balanced. I'm not trying to defend Levy. I like to just be a fair and balanced person. I just think that that's the way you've got to also think of it, because a lot of people, they won't say, oh, if we would have won the Champions League, would you have said, well done to Daniel Levy? Of course you wouldn't have, because a lot of people despise him and they wouldn't give him that credit. And they don't want to give him credit, but they still give him like the diss. And I say, he's done everything wrong. And that's where I somewhat disagree with the arguments when it comes to Daniel Levy. Does that make sense? Like, I'm not defending him.
That does make sense, but I do give him credit for the things that we've done. I think the progression, if you look at when he first took over the club, 2020, when I first started properly supporting Spurs, I was like 10 or 11. It was 10th, 11th, 12th.
Yeah.
You know, and from that point, it's been fantastic. But we were progressing at such a rate, and then we regressed at such a rate.
No, listen, I agree.
When we had that opportunity, and since that point, if you see my Facebook cover sheets and my initial Twitter avatar a few years back, I had Daniel Levy with guns, like saying this guy just destroys everyone around him. He's brilliant. But the decisions over the last 7-8 years, I'm almost using little things against Levy to get him out, because I don't think we're succeeding with Levy now.
Listen,
one thing quick.
Hang
on a second.
Ownership now. I do. I think we need
ownership. One point I've got here, yeah. Just one point I want to make on the side here, Jonathan. One defeat and people are losing their shit. No, it's not the point that it's one defeat. It's the second defeat. It's the point of the way we lost it, the way we done it, or should I say the way we didn't do it. That is what people are losing their shit about right now. Now, anyone who blatantly stood there and said Spurs are going to be title contenders this year, they need to get off whatever they were smoking or whatever they were sniffing or whatever they was bloody drinking, whatever. It weren't ever going to happen, yeah?
And I've listened to everyone here on streams and other streams, and nobody said we were going to win the title. Mia,
exactly.
Justin, Dan, nobody said we was going to win the title.
And to say we're losing it over one game, it's the way we lost the game. That is what is pissing everyone off, mate. Right, anyway, you's go on. I just wanted to call the fella on the side.
Yeah, no, listen, Tommy, I don't disagree with you at all. Like, I'm not trying to disagree with you. I think the decision making in the last 7 years has been awful. Since Pochettino got sacked, I think that we've made bad decision after bad decision. Like, honestly, I will 100% say that. I'm not going to sit here and say that and defend anything that's been done at all. But I think it's just a little bit disingenuous with the argument when people do try and like nitpick all these little things and say, oh, he's to blame for this and this and this. And I just think if you're going to be fair and reasonable in your argument, I like to think that you can see a bigger picture sometimes with things that happen in football. And to say that he only wants to get top four, but he won't do it because of the amount of money it costs and then does it in summer, I don't believe that to be true. I think that in the January, I think we will get players. I think we won't get loads. I think we'll get maybe 1-2 players to help Ange out. I really do. I don't believe that we're going to leave him completely short. I just can't see that happening personally.
And there's a lot of people that come from your side of the fence. It's very divided. A lot of people see things.
Yeah. No, I get that.
A lot of people see things from that side, Mia. I have to say. And do you know what? I'm jealous of your optimism. I wish I shared that optimism. I do. Sometimes I really do. The amount of times I spend watching streams, doing streams, I really wish I shared that optimism. But I just don't now. Because I've seen the regression when we had the chance. I just don't.
I think Angie's going to get backed because, and like I've said the reason 100 times, so I'll keep this one short and sweet. He ain't going to be asking for £100 million players. Give him 60 million, and I think he'll be able to fish out 2 players for us because he's not a manager that's used to having to look for like £100 million players. Now, one other comment made here. Do you know what? I've got to agree with this. I blame Kuti and Udogie more than Levy for yesterday's result. Yeah, yesterday's result, apart from the fact that we got no backup, yes, you can put that on Levy, but the reason we're in this situation is because of 2 injuries and then other players being idiots and got us in that situation.
To be fair though, Dan, if you think about it and looking at it on the other side,
it all adds up. It's not just down to Levy.
But the thing is, for 90 minutes, if we're looking on the other side, if you're basing on those 2 players, for 90 minutes, we hadn't conceded. So I'm not necessarily sure that it was those 2 in particular. I think we've got to be looking at more the fact of the Tottenham style that we have. You take those 2 players out, it didn't matter in terms of what we had. We'd have still been able to play that way. We'd have still had Maddison on the pitch and things like that. I think it's more the fact of if you take You know, Maddison, that is the key one out of all of it. If you take him out of the equation, we haven't got anyone who can step in, regardless of how, you know, good or bad that they are. We've got nobody who comes in and does that. And, you know, I thought that Lo Celso would be that option, but clearly from what we're seeing, Ange doesn't rate him for some reason. He's not playing him. He's not, you know, he's picking him from the bench. We need, if it was a case of that he was meant to be Maddison's replacement, he needed to start. And
he's the third manager that this is happening with, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's the third manager this has gone on with. Now, another comment we just had here. Same fella. Cheers for getting involved. It is appreciated, mate. So I will answer your questions when I can. Our midfield was useless. Yes, it was pathetic. And that is an understatement. All three of them. Absolutely shocking. The only thing Ange might have had to
even
play...
Even your boy Basuma, Dan? Even you're going to say Basuma?
Shocking. Shocking. One of the worst games I've seen him play. This is what I said at the start of the show, yeah? And I just think he had the perfect chance there to mess about with the team a bit. Again, personally, for the playmaking, I'd have stuck Kulu behind and everything. That's just more of an answer to the fellow here because we already spoke about that. So I was just answering to my man who's asking the questions. Go on, man. Carry on.
I was just, do you know what? I put this banner in and Justin beat me to it. VDV or Maddison. Who is the most important? As I had this set up before Dan went live, and you pretty much given your thoughts, Justin. You're saying Maddison is the big one because obviously we've lost both of them. It seems like Maddison's a long-term injury as well now. So, Mio, who would you say is more key? If you had to choose between having VDV fit and Maddison fit, both been fantastic so far. Who do you think is the key? Are you on the same page with Justin here? Saying Maddison?
No, I'm going to say Van de Ven because I think that he's integral to us playing the way we play. Because although Maddison is the creator, you've got to remember the reason that we can leave that gap behind is because we have Van de Ven, who's like rapid. He's like the Flash, basically. And I think that's integral. And what I will say about the missing Romero thing, I think that you're missing how important that is also to how we play because of the way that Romero he's good with the ball. He can have the ball at his feet. He's actually a good passer of the ball as well. Having no Doji is a massive miss because don't forget, he gets up and down the pitch. He gets up and down that pitch like a maniac. And he's creative as well. So actually having Udogie and Romero is a massive miss. And they are both like silly for what they did. And I do blame them because I do think that having them is a big miss. I do. And Van de Ven is the bigger miss, I think, because like I say, we can find a way to maybe create. We can find another way. But without Van de Ven, we can't play that high line because we don't have anybody rapid to get back. So that's where we're missing, I think.
And do you know what it is with Udogie as well? Actually, he lets our left winger get away with not being that great, I think. With Udogie on the pitch, the fact that he just boats it up that left-hand side, Richarlison's been shocking. For the majority of the season, he's been shocking. But he can get away with it because Udogie picks up a lot of that dirty work. So he is very key. Well, he's back now, Udogie. Udogie is back now. And he's completed his ban, hasn't he? So it is between Van de Ven and Maddison. I mean, who would you pick between these two, Dan? If your life depended on it, you had one to keep fit. Who would you keep fit more?
Maddison. Reason being is if we say, for instance, we didn't have players suspended and that, yeah, I reckon Romero, we could have coped with that with Udogie there. Even if we stuck Dyer, preferably Davis in the middle next to Romero, Porro on the right, whatever way they want to do it. We could have still dealt with something because we could have made something up front. Where we ain't got Maddison, we're not making nothing. It's like there's almost no reason to go forward as such because there's no one there to make it start rolling or no one there to get that pass through to Son or out wide or whatever to start it going and that. Maddison was probably the worst loss we could have had out of everyone. Either way, we're gonna miss whoever's gone because we just ain't got no depth. But Maddison is the one we have absolutely nothing that can even cover, that plays for that position. Like I keep saying, I still think Kulusevski should be moved across from whatever and used as the playmaker. But then we do have issues of everyone saying, who do we stick on the right, whatever else. Maddison is the one for me that we needed to keep.
It's huge. It's huge. Both players are huge. The fact that both are missing, both so key. But for me, hands down, I would have to say Maddison. However, Van der Ven has become almost more key because of the woeful backup we have. We have absolutely no backup.
It's not just that, Tom. It's also the way we play. Where we push forward so much. How many times have I said, and me and you have agreed on a few things, he's been great. But there's been a few times he does get caught out of position where he doesn't read where the ball's going to come. And it goes straight past him or over him. But the one thing this man has got, especially for a team pushing forward, is he's electric on the pace. I mean, this man is sharp. And we both spoke about it.
And as Mia said, Romero covers as well. They seem to have a good understanding. So,
but when they're up there,
as well.
Van der Ven's the one who comes back quick, like he covered Davis in the other game and everything, and that quite a few times. And
that's what I'm saying. He don't just
for this formation. But if we have not got a playmaker there, how do we even? What do we do? Play for a 0-0?
But don't forget, right? If we've got someone like a Van der Ven who is covering and a Romero as well, then that means we can push forward and not worry as much, which means we're not going to be sitting as deep, because that's what our problem with Wolves was. We were sitting too deep because we couldn't leave that gap behind because we didn't have.
We was playing Conte style again, weren't we? We was
but that's
against Wolves, it looked like Antonio Conte, and it was because of both of those. It was because of both of these players for those exact reasons you put forward. What do we do about Maddison creatively? And that high line, high press that VDV and Romero offers us puts tons of pressure on the opposition and makes us more fluid.
Don't forget, a lot of the time when we've scored goals, it's because we win the ball back because we're pressing. And even if we didn't have a Maddison, if you're pressing, you've got more chance of winning that ball back and being able to get somewhere with it. But the problem is when we haven't got a Van der Ven and a Romero, we can't do that press as well. And I think that actually is key. And Maddison, yes, he's key, but not being able to do that press is also key because we're not winning it back in their half, which is what he likes to do.
I definitely agree with that, as I said. But personally, Maddison for me, it's not because I don't blame Levy for not having backup for Maddison necessarily. He's unique. He's very, very unique. Maddison offers us set pieces. He comes so deep to get the ball. And what I've noticed, which I didn't think would be the situation, was he's getting a lot of assists from wide. So he's on the left byline, crossing them in, on the right byline. If you remember the goal against, was it Luton, where he wasn't in the game at all, crossed it in, Van der Ven, funnily enough, got on the end of it and scored. He's on the left-hand side. I'm like, I haven't seen him on the left, I haven't seen him on the right. Maddison's picking up spots where Kane would have in the past. And the fact that we're Kane and Maddison down now, that creativity's gone. And Son will have to pick up a lot of that. Can Son come as deep? We saw Son try and come deeper against Wolves. That's what he's going to have to do. He's going to have to do what Kane's been doing for 3 years. Has he got the passing range to do that?
No,
has he got the passing range to do that? But me is bang on about the high press, and I agree with it. It's just these two are so unbelievably key. If there were two players we didn't want to see being injured for long term, these were probably the two players, 100%. Just going on from the injuries for a second, Justin, I want to get you in here. A lot of Spurs fans, the media, social media, saying that the physios have done a shocking job again. Spurs physios, what are they doing? We've got 2 long-term injuries. Do you look at it like that, Justin? Do you look at it like it's the physios have had a bit of a mare?
No, not at all. I think anyone who's picking up on them, I don't really understand, because ultimately you look at it and you look at the situations for the 2 individuals. The first one, Maddison, I think somebody put up about he's had injuries in the past. So, and again, the difficulty that we've got is where, all right, we haven't got European football, but we are having to play these players 90 minutes regular as clockwork.
Yeah, but Justin, hang on a second. Hang on a second, mate. Sorry to interrupt you, but I'm going to have to call you before you even get to it. VDV, there's a chance that looked like he actually tore his hamstring, not just pulled it, whatever. That looked like he actually got a rip. And they let him walk off the pitch. Other teams don't do that. I mean, he had one man, like, not even supporting him on the bloody leg that he had the problem with, help him come off. Whereas other teams, you'd see they go straight on there, check him out. Right, no, you're fucked. You're done. They carry him off of there if his leg's damaged.
Do you know what Brian Daigle said on Tuesday night? You was on the show.
We just walk him off.
Do you know what Brian Daigle said on Tuesday night? He went, Levy doesn't even pay for stretchers. He won't even invest in stretchers now.
Exactly, and he's right. He's
Now you can't be assuming you know what Daniel Levy's thinking. Come on, you can't be doing that.
Listen, don't start having digs, right? Because I will come for you hard. So I won't want to mess with me. Trust me. That's true. Everyone knows what a sharp tongue I've got. So
fair enough.
We love it.
But look, shouldn't if his leg's done and he can't even put pressure on it, shouldn't he have got stretchered off?
It depends what they've said. If what they've obviously asked, we don't know what the conversation was.
He couldn't even bloody walk.
There must be I don't know. I'm not a medical person, but when you saw
it at the time, it's not something I really picked up on because I was watching it. I was at the game, but was it at the time? Was it something you saw? And in general with the other injuries, Solomon, Benny. This is why a few people having a go at the Spurs physio team. But you still say they're not to blame. I'm in agreement with you. I am in agreement with you.
Yeah, I think. Do you know what I will say? What I would say is that Bentancur's come back early, so the medical team are responsible for that. No,
exactly.
Just saying.
And
it's like cherry picking, isn't it? Like,
yeah, and
no, it's not the point I'm getting
at. If you
look
at the fact that we've not rushed Bentancur back in, we are still trying to get him off the bench from an hour point and things like that. So I don't necessarily think just because obviously they didn't put an arm around him and and sort of make sure he didn't put anything on there. I don't necessarily. I think the whole point is that he's probably sat there and thought, I can walk myself off and what have you. And as we've seen, they're still not 100% sure because initially they thought it was going to be that he would need surgery. So the fact of it being is that. For me, no, I don't think so. With either,
it's not blaming no one that it happened, whatever, and it's not their fault that things happen. I'm saying the way they deal with something after. I can pretty much agree with what Brian has said about this on previous shows of us and ones that I've heard him talk on and whatever and that. Another team would have stretchered the player off. I mean, at the end of the day, when the player hurts himself, he says he's all right. Who makes the decision whether he stays on or off the pitch if he bangs his head? It ain't the player, is it?
Hang on. If you look
at
at that United game, you look at United Fulham.
Look, in general, it's not meant to be the player.
Fine, and then the referee was the one who said, "No, you need to have someone look at it," and he still stayed on the pitch.
That's my point. Is if someone's done themselves and you think they're done, you got to do your job then. And I don't feel in that aspect. I don't think we look eager enough to look after the players sometimes, like with an injury on the pitch. That's not giving excuses for what happens or trying to put the blame anywhere. It's a separate point I was bringing up.
In that instance with Van der Ven, I think there's an argument to be made. But overall, I don't think we can blame the Spurs physio team. Solomon,
not blaming it.
Solomon out for 4 months. He was out for the first 4 months of last season with Fulham. That's why he never played a game for them in the first 4 months. So he was an injury prone, which is one of the reservations I had about signing him. But he was free and there was no risk, apparently. It was a risk because he got injured. And, well, they didn't know he was going to release these cars this week. But that's a whole nother situation. But Benny, as Mia said, bang on. Bentancur was supposed to be out for 10 months, 11 months. We got him back in 8 months. He's been training. Looks like, fingers crossed, he's going to start. I would start him next game, which is quite a while away because we've got international duty. I'll be looking to put him in.
Well, he's already been called out for international, isn't he? And he's probably going to start with that.
Well, I hope they're slow with him. I hope that the first game, because there's always 2 games, isn't there? International break.
They won't be. They weren't with Romero, so I doubt they
don't care.
I doubt,
they got Bielsa. He's Uruguayan.
No, he's Uruguayan, but I don't think they'll care. I really don't.
The thing with Bielsa's their manager, isn't he? And they play a high press, play very similar way to Pochettino, Bielsa, and they all sort of play a similar high press system. So Bentancur is playing in that, and he is key. He is absolutely key for Uruguay. But I would hope the first game he'd come off the bench. But do you know what? Even Kane, everyone said this guy's got glass ankles. Everyone saw that he was getting injured 3 months this season, 4 months the following season. But for the last 2 or 3 years he was there. Physio's done a fantastic job. Hardly had ever got injured, Kane. Never, ever got injured. So I think it's a bit of a is a bit of a lazy way of looking at things. You know, blame the physio team, and we know Bissouma, Udogie,
there's no
Romero
total blame on them.
sending offs. They're missing because they got sent off, not because they got injured. So
there's no total blame on them. It's just a point I'm picking up on.
No, that specific
it's
point, you could be right. That specific point, you could be absolutely right. But Dan, if you was to go on from that and say, oh, well, that's, you know, the physio team are fucking terrible, then that's something that I would argue. But I know it's just one opinion on one situation. And looking at how he torn it, it's a good opinion to be made. I could hear it from the stands. I actually heard his fucking scream from the stands. So I think they knew that it was it. You could see on his eye, it looked like.
Oh, mate, yeah.
It looked like it was a tear or something, but at the time, it's not what I'm thinking about. I'm thinking, fucking hell, Eric Dyer. you know that he's about to make his appearance on the pitch. So one more thing, finally, Alfie Devine out on loan, Cam. Davinson Sanchez, centre back. So final day before the transfer window, sort of aggressive. Ball-playing centre-back may have fit in with this Ange system.
He's got the pace, didn't he?
Did we make errors in letting Devine go out on loan and letting Sanchez be sold final day of the window? Would we have been better off keeping him, in your eyes?
I think hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it, really, Tom? Like, that's the thing you've got to think of, is that I think Devine needs time. I think he probably needs to get a bit of experience, and hence why we probably put him out on loan. With Sanchez, I think that what did Ange not come out and say that nobody would leave anyway without his say? I think he okayed it, basically. I think that he did okay for that to happen. So what can we say? Like, yes, I would have preferred to have Sanchez over Dyer because of the speed. At least he has got that. But yeah, it is what it is. Like I say, hindsight's a wonderful thing. I think Dyer's just stubborn and didn't want to leave, where Sanchez did want to leave, and I think that's the reason why Sanchez went and Dyer didn't. I think it's purely down to those reasonings, and said okay to it. So I think it is what it is. Like I say, hindsight's a wonderful thing, I guess.
That it is.
Justin, we mentioned Lo Celso. Did you have any trust that Lo Celso could do the job if Maddison got injured? And if not, looking at Devine, did you look at Devine and say, do you know what, this guy could have been a better option?
Well, I think, to be fair, as much as we've perhaps disagreed with each other, I'd probably say in terms of with Mia, I do agree with what she's saying around, you know, if Ange didn't feel that he is going to be ready to do so and does need the game time, then perhaps, you know, ultimately, I mean, let's look at it back through the friendlies. He did use him. He did actually, you know, give him some game time, and perhaps he's looked at it and just thought, actually, I'm happy with what I've got. Maybe he did look at the fact of Lo Celso and think, you know, that he would have been an option. That's kind of what I thought he was thinking, you know. But whether it be that he's looked at Lo Celso now more and he's thought, well, actually, he doesn't feel that he suits it, I don't know. I mean, it's a strange one. It really is, because you do look at it, especially as if you're going to turn around and then have Jamie Donnelly on the bench, why would you let Alfie Devine go? But I get the fact of the other side of it. So it's a very strange one, particularly to see play out. But whether, you know, Ange thought that Lo Celso could do a job, don't know. I mean, clearly it looks as though he doesn't fancy him. You know, he doesn't feel that he can do that job. And if he can't do the playmaker role, unless other people see otherwise, I don't necessarily see how Lo Celso fits into his team anymore, sadly.
And in a way, that's, you know, not many people can divine Lo Celso. Not many people can come and step in for Maddison, regardless. But I think Devine needed a loan. He needed a loan at this stage. Under 21's been smashing it the last year and a half. He's the Spurs name, the last 18 months in terms of the youth team. But I don't know. Even with hindsight, I would have stayed away from loaning him out, because Maddison picks up these little niggles. He has a history of picking up these injuries. I would have just stayed away for the first 6 months. And Sanchez, well, I would have kept them both. I think we want Dyer and Sanchez out. Well, I would have, if Dyer didn't want to go, I just would have kept both, because I think Phillips is our next option, or Ben Davies at left back is our next option. Not for me. So I definitely would have kept Sanchez in this situation. But the money comes in, £8 million, £10 million, something like that. And
I think we've done the right thing letting him go, as long as we was willing to use Phillips. I mean, I get it that he's been brought in as the young bod and he looks like he's got potential, whatever else. But it was blatantly obvious that he was also brought in to be the number 4, basically, out of the defenders. And that was a time we really could have used him. And we didn't. What is the reason to it? Is it that Ange didn't want to take the risk, or he doesn't think he's prepared, or he doesn't think he's good enough yet? I suppose only Ange knows, but this would have been the perfect game to do it.
Well, Ange wouldn't have had enough time to see if Phillips was good.
Well, look at it this way. Look at it this way.
A lot of the squad.
Right.
You wouldn't have had a lot of time to see if a lot of the squad were good enough, to be honest with
you.
The way
I see this one, yeah, I'll ask all 3 of you this question, yeah, and anyone who's watching. Now, what he did yesterday, I mean, yeah, Ange was at fault for some of it, because I think he definitely made some wrong decisions there. And the subs and that, there was just hardly any point to them really bringing on the same for the same when you knew they weren't going to do anything. But that was a perfect game where we've spoke about this before, Tom, and I think I've spoke about it to you as well, Mia. We could have brought Phillips on and played him instead of Dyer, yeah? Quite a few people would have been like, whoa, all right, he's got a pair on him. Okay, give it a go. And if Phillips would have had an awful game, scored no goal, and we'd lost 3-1, with the rest of the team playing shit as the way it was anyway, I think I would have looked at it personally and said, do you know what, though? Fair play for giving Phillips a go and letting the man run his feet and that and getting us to have a look at him, whatever, and that. Because we all know Dyer is that crap. I think this was his perfect chance to do that, and he didn't. There's got to be a reason to it. Is it he didn't want to take the risk, or
Phillips not good enough? I mean, that's it. I mean,
exactly. That's what I'm saying.
I think it's pretty straightforward. If he's put Davies and Dyer in front of a fully fit Phillips, because he thinks they're better than him at this stage. I don't see any other way.
Phillips potentially have been a club signing. We've seen those in the past, haven't we?
Oh, he's definitely a club signing. 100%. He played 7 games for Blackburn his entire career, so he's a future signing without a shadow of a doubt. And that's why we shouldn't have let Sanchez go. We should have kept Sanchez. I don't want Sanchez or Dyer there. Makes absolutely no sense sending Sanchez over Dyer. But as Dyer said, I'm not going anywhere. That's I don't
want to get back into leafing, but you do know that all the signs are club signs, because if you want to have a philosophy and you get new managers in, you don't necessarily buy. You buy for a philosophy. You don't necessarily buy. They are all club signings. Joe, that's that throwaway comment. We could have, if Vicario didn't work out, would have you said that's a club signing? Because I think that's another thing that gets me. A lot of people switch it up and say, oh, that's a club signing because it's cheap if it don't work out. If they do work out, it's a wonderful Ange signing. You can't have it both ways.
But I think Vicario definitely was a first team signing, because we knew Loris wasn't going to be there. So we knew Vicario was going to come straight in.
Yeah, no, of course. He's a first team. But is it, what I'm trying to say to you, Tom, is that a lot of people, when they're doubting Vicario, go, no, it's just Levy being cheap. It's Levy being cheap. Now he's worked out. Everyone's like, oh my God, he's amazing. That's what I'm saying about double standards.
I think it has to be balanced around whether Ange, because I think a lot of it...
Wouldn't it indicate that it's not a great signing if you can't get over Dyer and Davis, and it is a youth signing that more than anything?
I get that. I do get that. He was obviously brought in as some sort of backup, and Ange obviously doesn't think he's ready. Maybe it's just he's purely not ready and he's young and he doesn't want to just chuck him in. It couldn't be. It could just be that. And that is something that obviously we have to have players ready players coming through, because not all the players are going to be ready at the same time. So I kind of get it, and I do get why it's done as well. So I can see both sides, but I just think it's, again, a little bit of a funny one when people will automatically say it's a signing, a Levy or club signing, if it don't work out, or if it's cheap, and they go, it's a cheap Levy signing until it works out, and then everyone will go, oh my God, hallelujah, praise the Lord, and just the next Messiah. So that's when
I think it will obviously depend in terms of, because obviously we know, and, in terms of, I think what we will probably see more now of is club signings that they will look at and potentially have, because obviously what we saw particularly when we didn't get David Raya and we did get Vicario was the fact of it was more statistic based. So I think what we will probably see in terms of now, rather than what we've seen in years gone by, is actually just being more done on statistics. You know, you look at the people that they've brought in, it's very much data driven people coming through who will actually look at it. I think what we might though see, which will be where the difference comes into it, is the likes of, you know, Maddison. It was made very clear that Ange wanted Maddison. And I think also when people were being critical of Vicario coming in over David Raya, you know, actually the Ange who came out and said, no, I did want him. You know, the stats proved up on what we saw. So I think there's a balance.
He's not going to come out and say I didn't want him, is he? He's not.
Exactly.
No,
that is another truth, though, isn't it?
But to be fair, we have seen the one thing we have seen in the past, particularly around Jed Spence. Don't forget, you know, that was come out by Conte as a club signing. So I think what we will probably see is a difference between the setup of them and the projection that they make going forward. I think is where we'll see the difference between where we are now with Ange to what we've seen in the past.
Yeah, no, of course, because Conte will throw anyone under the bus that doesn't, when it suits him, basically. So he threw Basuma under the bus. Don't forget, he didn't rate him and he didn't play him. And then look at Basuma. So I think that you've got with Conte, I don't always take exactly what he said. I take it all with a bit of a pinch of salt because he's a bit of a drama alarm, really, let's be honest.
You could say that. That's a bit of an understatement. I mean, you'd think he's on a 24/7 period most of the time. I think he's at
the same time, you know, Conte gets a lot of stick. We say Levy gets a lot of stick. I like to stick up for Conte as well because let's face it, he's won everything.
Oh God, yeah. There's no doubt about it, Tom. I'm never doubting him as a manager. The way obviously he's won stuff, absolutely, but he just wasn't suited for our club.
No, he was never going to work. It needed to be very similar to Mourinho. It needed to be, I'll give you everything and you will then succeed. And we know from what we've seen in the past that it is done within certain parameters.
It came from an initial shocking decision, probably the worst appointment in one of the worst appointments in Spurs history, getting Nuno in after being sacked from Wolves for 13th. And then he knew that, you know, we needed to get someone big time. And when you get someone big time like Conte, you have to pay him a lot of money. You have to pay him a hell of a lot of money.
Because they want to do it now.
Because there's other clubs looking at him as well. And there were Levy out chants going around the ground when we lost 3-0 to Man United. I was there. So Levy out does work. Next day, he actually made a decision. And getting Conte in at that stage, you think the guy's on 350 grand a week. He hasn't moved. He's still, before that Southampton, the famous Southampton post-match interview where he lost his shit, he still hadn't moved to Tottenham. He's there for the money. He's simply there for the money. Unfortunately, no one's coming to Spurs because we're a successful team and he wants to be heralded as one of Spurs' best managers. Coming for the money. And to be fair, the football was horrific. It was some of the worst football I've ever seen. But somehow, he still got us in the fourth. And out of the last 4 years, finishing 6th, 7th, 4th, then 8th, that goes to show.
When he left, he was in 4th.
That goes to show he is a quality manager. But as everyone has agreed with, he wasn't right for Spurs. It was like a desperate measures appointment at that time for definite. And we're playing much better football these days. I mean, it wasn't hard.
Joe, I always liken the Conte signing to when you just come out of a relationship and you meet this person and you think it's like a 10 out of 10, you're like, oh my God, this is like amazing. But then they just treat you like absolute rubbish. They leave you on blue ticks all the time. They pick you up, drop you. And just because they're a 10 out of 10, you're just like, oh my God, you're amazing. And then all of a sudden you're like, wake up and you're like, why am I putting up with this rubbish? Like, this is ridiculous.
I'll be back in 2
leave you on blue ticks all the time. That's more friends for me. Not so just friends leaving you on blue ticks, but I get what you're saying. Definitely. I love these analogies. So I do want to talk about Ange a little bit more. We're coming sort of towards the end of the show now. I'm sure I haven't been here for the first 40 minutes. We've pretty much picked up on everything that's happened over the last few days. But we are getting a lot of sending offs. And I want to Ange is starting to get a little bit of criticism. He got a lot of criticism after the Fulham game. When we started the season off well, made 9 changes, we went out the Carabao Cup. And it seems this week he's getting a bit of criticism too. So I do want to ask this to you first, Mia. Biggest negative of Ange so far. If you had to think of the biggest negative so far, just one, what would it be? I mean, I'll start by saying I think it was the 9 changes in the Carabao Cup.
Yeah, me too.
I
would
was
agree.
happy. I was like 5 or 6. You need to see what the squad's made of. So 5 or 6 would have been plenty. But 9, and the fact that we're not in Europe, it only gives us the opportunity to win 2 cups. And, one of them are out. And unless you win the Premier League, all we've got is the FA Cup left. So are you similar in that scenario? Would you have said that?
Yeah, I would have 100% said that. I think that the fact that people were trying to justify it by saying he needed to see the other team or like the other players and what they're like. If you're going to have 1 or 2 players out, then you replace with 1 or 2, right? So for me, the maximum we should have done was maybe 4. Keep the spine, keep the defence the same, because I felt like that was important. So yeah, I think for me that's probably his biggest little mark on his CV for me. Even though I absolutely love Ange, of course, but for me that would be the one.
I'm trying to think before I go to Justin, I'm trying to think what other ones there would be. I mean, some of his subs. I mean, what annoys me at times, you can see why now, because Maddison has picked up an injury, was the constant subbing of Son and Maddison at the same time. It's not the fact that putting him off, but he done it 4 or 5 times. I'm like, why?
Yeah.
And then totally against Arsenal, Son was on a hat trick, and he brought Maddison and Son off. I mean, you could have lost that in the last 20 minutes.
I think Son should have carried on. 10 minutes, give Son another 10 minutes sort of thing. Don't just drop them both at the same time. I agree with you.
Yeah, but would you be saying that if then you found out there was like an injury to one of them, or and you think, oh, they could have been left on and they would have made it worse? Or I think he did it for a reason. That's I sort of give him that. I think he done it for a reason.
I get it, but dropping them both at the same time.
That's
what I'm agreeing with Scott.
Yeah, I get it.
4 times they've come off at exactly the same time. But there could be psychology behind that as well. It's like, okay, I don't want to bring one off at a time. At least the players that come on know that, they'll be given some attacking responsibility together. And it's sometimes good. Like if you're changing a defence, changing one centre back, then changing another centre back can sort of make things very, very difficult for both to settle. So I guess there's that, but the fact that it's happened 4 times, the North London derby one really made me angry because we was in that game 2-2. Son on a hat trick, that pissed me off.
And even if he was tired, he'd have still had the adrenaline for the hat trick.
Yeah, that's one of them. But injuries, we've seen how utterly slim this team is in terms of depth, and so there's 2 sides of the coin. Justin, where do you sit? Where do you sit on if you had to give?
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying about the hat trick thing, but to me, I just sort of looked at it and thought, at the end of the day, he's probably looking at squad rotation, and he's just trying to manage his players through, in terms of getting through game by game and trying to see out the season. If I was being probably critical, the only 2, the first one was the Fulham game, Carabao Cup, definitely. And then the second one hasn't really been used in the youth. I mean, if you've got them on the bench, don't just have them there for the sake of it. At least if you've put them there, you must trust the fact that you're prepared to give them a go. We even saw it with the likes of last year, where I can't remember, it was Brian Mason, when he took over, and he actually brought a couple of younger players on and for their debut. So it is possible to do that, and I think maybe that's the only thing I would like to see is more younger players, coming on. But that's it. But I've got to shoot, guys. So thank you so much for having me on. Take care, everyone, and I will catch up with you soon. All right.
Take it easy, Justin, man. Take it easy.
Take it easy. Take care.
Bye.
In a bit. Dan, where do you sit on that side? Where do you sit on the side of the worst, the biggest negative Ange has given this season? It's a good point from Justin because it leads on from Phillips not starting the other day, so not using youth as much. Where would you sit? If I was to predict, Dan, knowing you as co-host, you'd probably say the Carabao Cup thing as well. You muted. You've either muted yourself or your microphone's slipped out.
Cool. That's the most sense he's ever made.
Yeah.
Count yourself lucky you're only on the camera. No, with that one, I mean, in some ways you could look at it now and say it's probably a good job that happened because that's less games for an injured up team now. But I still think that was a big mistake he made, because that could have been the cup that we could have won, if anything. I know it's always buts and maybes, or he could have just used it to give people like Phillips and that a game. So I still think that's the biggest mistake he made. But I also do think that him going the way he did yesterday and just going with players, I won't say that he was sure with as such, because the only thing you knew that was sure about Dyer is that he was going to fuck it up one way or another. But he should have taken that gamble yesterday on one or two places. And I think Phillips should have had a go on there, or someone else, or changed it about a little. I felt he could have messed about a little bit and got away with it yesterday, even if we still lost. So it's one of them two. I must admit, I was a bit upset that he didn't try anything yesterday. I mean, it's like he almost...
It was a Conte 11, wasn't it? It was a Conte 11.
I mean, okay, Johnson was on the pitch, but I think he had a shocking game as well. All right, he scored a goal, but that was it.
We can have a go at Conte, but this was the team that Conte was left with yesterday. Ben Davies, Dyer, who played Royal at left back, and Hotspur came in. That was the biggest criticism. It's another good point, Dan. Hotspur back in. I would have liked to see Lo Celso. Bentancur with his injury. I've said, do you know what? I'd put him as a cam. Both-footed. He's more creative. He's a little, Ericsson, both-footed. I loved him as a cam. Just for now, keep him as a cam. It does change your entire approach, but when you've got the injuries, you do need that third centre mid to cover Dyer and Davies' inadequacies. So that's what Conte done. Every centre mid we had was a deep line centre mid. So you can see why. So, but it was I think Hotspur you could have done with someone else in there. I really do.
That whole midfield was just defensive in its way as such. And like I've said, Basuma is box to box. He's not a defensive midfielder. But it's just everyone. Was it that he told everyone to come back and do that? Or was it all just came naturally again, like the Conte style just came natural to them and they all came sitting back because they were so scared of Davies and Dyer behind them?
It's a good debate.
Yeah. Joe, I think what didn't help is Raul is more defensive minded, and he was also going into the midfield. So we lost the width as well, because he was coming in on the inside, and he's not somebody who's very good at going forward. So at least when a Doji does it, he gets back and forth and creates. But with Raul, he didn't do that. So we had even more midfielders defending in the basically. That was a problem. We had everybody in the middle just defending, no one really creating or doing anything.
And that comes down to Maddison not giving us those breaths, those getting on the ball, getting up, and as we've already said, as you said, Mia, the defense pushing up. We didn't have the pace of VDV and Romero getting up the line. So they're just so key. Right. VDV and Maddison are so key to this team.
Yeah, no, they are really key.
They really are.
And
right. I don't sound too negative. I don't sound too toxic, too negative. So, biggest positive of Ange so far. Biggest positive of Ange so far for you, Dan. Let's start with you. Got one. There's a lot, but just give me one. His biggest positive for you.
The biggest positive for me. I don't know. Do you know what? You say the biggest positive because you sit there and straight away there's a few you can name, isn't there? There's a few you can go straight away. I like the life that he's put into the team. I like the life he's put into everybody, give the bit of hope, this and that and everything. But I suppose it comes down to his style of football. It's just the biggest positive is just seeing us play attacking football again until yesterday. But that I'd say is definitely one of the biggest positives he's done. He's letting players, when we've got our first 11 on there, play the way they want to play. And he's also given them, well, go on then, go and do it. Basically, sort of like old school, what Wenger first started when he went at Arsenal and then basically just said to them, well, go on then, get on the pitch and play football. And I think that's one of freedom. Yeah, and that's one of the best things I think he's done for us. Because, did it show? Even when we had dodgy games and that, we were still going in and getting goals.
Mia, if you had to pick one positive, would you go down the same line as Dan? Simply attacking football?
No, I would actually go down the fact that he's united everyone at the club and the fans, because we all just love Ange. The team just love Ange, and you can just see that unity in them. When we have our starting 11, you can see how much they fight for each other, how much they love each other. Even the fact that I know it didn't count for nothing, but when Brennan Johnson got his goal, he did the Maddison celebration as if like a little tribute to Mads. And I love it. I love the relationship they're building. And that's because Ange's come in and sort of, I don't know, the way it's just the Ange effect, isn't it? It's just the Ange effect. And I love him.
My one would be, I would say, it would be the stalwarts that he's dropped. So Eric Dyer, most managers come in and they're like, this guy's experienced. He's been at the club 10 years, 300 odd caps for Spurs, 50 caps for England. I'm going to start him. Did not. Went with, Romero, VDV. VDV's got issues. There are issues to his game. His concentration does go a little bit from time to time, but we've seen his incredible pace, and for the most part, he's been fantastic. And then there's Hojbjerg. It would have been easy to keep Hojbjerg and not play Sarr. Easy. Because Sarr's such a young, experienced player as well. So those the players that most managers, I feel, would have depended on to a certain extent. We've seen it in the past. I think Ange is given free. I think Ange's decisions there. I think fantastic. That is the biggest positive to me. And 1 second, Dan. And I actually disagree with you to a certain extent to the positive attacking style. I think there's a big reason to why there's a positive attacking style, and I think the signings alone. I mean, the defensive additions, the previous managers didn't have. Udogie, Porro, Conte had him for like 2 or 3 months. VDV, even Vicario's more of a ball player than Lloris. And then Maddison, that freedom that you got with Maddison. It's like that, previous managers didn't have that. If they had that, I think we would have been more attacking. Naturally, those players are more attacking. So
not with Conte. No, Conte, you could have had like 10 Messis on the pitch or whatever, and they'd have still told them to play defensive. That's just Conte style.
I think he probably still would have told him to be defensive, but they would have been better defensively. VDV would have been better than Dyer. Udogie would have been better than Ben Davis. I think they still would have been better. They still would have been better. But yeah, I think this is the players he dropped from the start, because he dropped them from the very start, Dyer and Hojbjerg. So that's that's the way.
You know what? I think with what you say there, I think that just answers a question for all of us. Why didn't he play Phillips? Well, if he had the bottle to drop Hojbjerg for Sarr, and Sarr's only 20, 21, it definitely shows that he thought he's good enough and strong enough to do it.
Yeah.
Maybe that is the answer to why he didn't play.
That is what it is. I don't think he's. I don't think he's scared. I think he genuinely doesn't think Phillips is ready. And there's no problem with that, because he's played 7 professional league games in his career.
No, I get it. I would have just liked to see him try it, but I think it.
And that comes back to the lack of depth in the team. We should have signed centre backs. Yeah. We should have signed at least a second centre back in the summer. More so when you let Sanchez go on the final day. I don't rate Sanchez, but it's something we could have had as backup. And it's not just hindsight, because you're going to get injuries. Romero has got a history of getting sent off.
And someone who runs injuries, like Van de Ven, is going to get an injury.
He got 3 months.
They're going to get a hamstring.
Yeah, with Wolfsburg because of his hamstring.
Yeah,
he got 3 month injury last year because of his hamstring. You knew it was happening.
When you've got a player who's quick but takes say 10 meters to get to his top pace as such, his body's got that time to work it out. When you've got someone like Van de Ven, who's literally 2 footsteps and he's already at 100 miles an hour, his hamstring's going to go. It's going to happen. It happens to players like that. I mean, your perfect example for that is look at Michael Owen. He used to take 2 footsteps, bang, the fella was off. His hamstring started going. It always happens to players like that.
Lamptey was considered the fastest player ever in the Premier League. When he started sprinting for Brighton at right back, done his hamstring. He's nowhere now. He's literally nowhere without his pace. He's gone. His career's going to be lower table, maybe mid-table in Belgium or something like that, because he relies on his pace so much. This could be, in a way, a blessing for VDV. He can't just rely on his pace all the time. He'll have to. His other traits as a defender will have to improve.
The thing is with the hamstring, the hamstring is just like the back. And I speak with a back here with a lot of experience, believe you me. Once your back's done, slip discs or whatever else, the best you'll ever do is fix it 90%. And then when it goes again, because it will, the best you'll do is fix 90% of that. You've now already lost 20%. And it just keeps going on and on and on like that. Hamstrings are exactly the same. Once you've done your hamstring, you'll fix it 80 to 90%. but you will do it again. And then you'll only fix it up to a certain extent on that one, and it keeps going on. It's like what we've said about strikers before. Strikers like Harry Kane, Teddy Sheringham, things like that, will always play football a lot longer than people like Michael Owen, than people like Son. Why? Because of the pace. The pace. They're so electric and reliant on the pace. When the pace starts going, even if they don't injure themselves, as we get older, our pace drops down. I mean, look at Salah. He's lost a good yard on him, and that's basically down to age and that. When you've got a player who doesn't rely on pace and is even slow, especially up front, where they've had to use their brain more all the time to work out what's going to happen to be there because they're not quick enough to just get there, their careers always last longer. It's the ones who rely on the pace where their career disappears a lot quicker.
Sheringham's the perfect example, isn't he? He really is.
Yeah.
He played till, I think, 41. He was still playing at West Ham. It's incredible. He's 2 steps ahead up here, and it's the same with Kane.
And the rest, mate, 3 or 4 steps.
Kane doesn't need the pace. He's just 2 steps ahead up here.
Yep.
On the shoulder, he beats the offside trap perfectly. It's one of the things Sterling does. I saw it again today. Sterling's always been fast, but he doesn't need to rely on his pace. He's so good at timing those runs. Does it for England, doing it for Chelsea now. Just perfect timing. It's a very good point. Sheringham's a very good comparison. A very good comparison there. Right. I want to look at the upcoming fixtures now. Because after the international break, it doesn't get much easier. It really doesn't. We got Villa, who are, I think Villa are a point behind us. Same games played. We're 4th and they're 5th, 1 point behind us. We got them. We got Man City, of course. What a game that was today, Man City Chelsea. What an incredible game!
I missed it, mate. I was out. I wanted to get back to watch that game definitely, and I missed it.
I said a few weeks back before the Spurs game as well that this Palmer, they've got one here. They've got a serious player.
You did. Yeah, you did.
Is balling. This player is going to be big time in a midfield that's got depth for England. He'll be in the starting 11. For the next World Cup of the Euros, I think this boy's different gravy.
He definitely looks good.
West Ham, another big derby, probably our 3rd biggest derby. I'd say mine's Arsenal and Chelsea. It's my biggest because I've got a lot of West Ham fans and I fucking hate them. So I've got a lot of West Ham mate fans, I should say. And yeah, I grew up with at school and they still give me shit. Well, they don't really give me shit.
You'll always find West Ham fans.
Since they won that European trophy, they've been giving me more earache than usual. So
I noticed a few of them bopping around with their shirts all proud and that, and I'm like, you're still a West Ham, like seriously.
Yeah.
You know what? In Southend, where I used to live, never saw a single West Ham fan. Never saw a single one. Oh, through the summer, probably not so much now. Although they did win today, didn't they? They got a late win, but they're like 12th or 11th now. Without Declan Rice, they'll be very lucky to finish in the top 10. So it's always good spanking them. So of course, I'll take it off there. So Villa, Man City, West Ham and Newcastle, no mugs either. Very, very tough. All in the top 7, all in the top 8.
Even with their injuries, Newcastle look trouble.
You worried? You worried with this fixture list?
Oh, mate, it's definitely shitting bricks, isn't it? Without a doubt. I mean, Newcastle got injuries and that, but they still look like a force to be reckoned with. Like, I'm not saying their defense or I'm not saying their backup is good, but they still look like they can muscle a game out. As soon as we've lost a couple of our players, we definitely can't muscle a game out at all, and we definitely can't play the game out.
Don't forget, by then we will have Romero and Adoji back there. That's a positive.
Yes,
a little bit positive.
Yeah,
and I think that they've got games in Europe, so them Champions League games I think are definitely affecting them this season. I said that it would. I said it'd be interesting.
Oh, it will do with anybody.
What they do, because I do think it's going to get tougher for them as they go along because they're playing more and more games and getting injuries. So Newcastle's going to be a tricky game, don't get me wrong, but the one I'm terrified of is going to have to be Man City. I said when we had Van der Ven and Romero, I was like, okay, we could possibly get a draw. Now I think it's bend over, and that's what we're going to get, bend over time. Big time.
So you're basically saying that if we play City, we're going to be walking down the road like John Wayne.
Yeah. No Lube FC.
Yep, sandpaper. I agree. I mean, it's how we've been walking for the past 20 odd years with Daniel Levy standing there, but we're definitely going to be limping with a bit of pain now. I don't see us standing a chance in hell with that.
But our record
West
against
Ham
Man City is absolutely incredible.
Yeah,
that's because we play different though, Tommy, because we used to play like what Conte does, isn't it? And it hits him on the break. But if Ange don't do that, we're stuffed.
Yeah, and West Ham is always going to be a hard game because it's a London derby. How your team's doing at the time goes out the window. And West Ham have pissed us off a few times.
No, you haven't really got much to lose now, have they? Let's face it.
No, but the point is, what I'm saying is, when it comes to a London derby, one can be in first and one can be in bloody 19th, but you can put that out the window like a lot of the time because it just seems to change to its own thing. I mean, a lot of the time you see that we sort of step down a level and the other one comes up a level, basically. But London derby is always a nightmare. City, it just. If we even come out of that 2-0 sort of thing, I think most of us would be like, yeah, all right, I'll have that one. Newcastle is going to be hard, and Villa is not going to be bloody easy. Not that any game is, but Villa is our next one, and we are going to be missing even more players by the time it comes to Villa, aren't we?
They've come along quietly again, Villa, haven't they? Because they got absolutely destroyed in a couple of games this season. You think, oh, you know what? They might not be quite as good, but they're a point behind us. We were top.
But you know what? They're better at home.
They've got a good squad.
And they're better at home as well than they are away. Their away record, if you look, their away record ain't all that. It's their home record. They're smashing teams at home.
And that's the key. That's the key for me. In a team, it's the defense is the foundation of any good team, and your home record. You got to make your club a fortress. You got to make it a fortress.
Yeah,
at home.
of course. So, yeah.
If they're doing that right, I think Villa had a great.
Well, that's how Man U got top 4 last season, wasn't it? Away day was just not good at all, but at home, Man U was pretty solid last season, weren't they?
Exactly.
That's how they got their full
now on the head with the depth. When you talk about the depth Villa have got, and do you know what? I always look at transfer route. On my solo show, I always go through the papers and I look at the transfers. And Villa are constantly linked with players that will just improve their depth. Like Matty Cash is brilliant at right back, Digne is brilliant at left back, but they're looking at right backs. They're looking at left back. They're looking at players to add the quality to the team now there in Europe. It's something for me we didn't do for quite a while. Hopefully that changes this January because we need depth. We can see it. It's plain. It's plain, and we haven't even seen the worst of it yet because we've got 4 games coming up. But what I will say is, international break is good timing here for us because it gives Maddison a chance to get back. As you said, Udogi's going to be back. Romero's going to be he's going to have a 2-game ban, but it's not like an injury. So, and he's got time to get fit as well because Romero was struggling with injuries at the start of the season. So Udogi was injured. Once the only player in the first 11 we had injured was Udogi at Palace before Chelsea. So it gives rest time to a few of the players. It has come at a good time. I think the international break has helped us. I'm sorry, Mia, who's going to come in there?
Yeah, I forgot I was going to say now. Don't worry.
You was going to say what I was going to say. Let's just say you was going to say.
That's fine. Yeah, snap. Yes,
right. Before we go on tonight's show, there's one more thing I wanted to mention. And please, I think we've got 17 people watching. I know it's very, very diluted at this time, at all times in the Spurs community right now. So thanks for being with us. We get a lot of people watching on the recording. If you're watching on the recording or live, please smash the like if you haven't already done so. Hit the subscribe. And of course, I'm going to get me a plug for Spurs Between the Lines for sure. But head over there, subscribe too. You know, Mia's going to plug the channel, of course, at the end.
She always does. Mia does an excellent job on there. If you want some solid information, you want to hear it how it is, apart from coming on here, you definitely go on Mia's channel and you'll get the same on there. What you see is what you get. And she knows what she's talking about. Fair play, Mia. Thanks for coming on. It's much appreciated.
We're not done yet. This is Eric.
I know that. What the fuck is that?
That is scary, isn't it? That is scary. But I want to take our foot off the pedal slightly. The last thing I want to mention tonight: do the refs and the media hate us? Is there a conspiracy against Spurs? I'm on a lot of group chats, a lot of conspiracy theories going about. But this was released like an hour after our loss, maybe even before. No, about half an hour after our loss to Wolves. So introducing Domino's Pizza. This is true. Introducing our new dessert, the Spurs Crumble. The media. Did the media hate us? Did the referees hate us? A lot of people blaming the Wolves result, Dan, on the ref.
I don't think the ref had a good game, but if we try and blame that on anyone but ourselves or anything to do with Tottenham, then we're going to look like idiots. And anyone who does think it was anyone but Tottenham's fault, they are an idiot as far as I'm concerned, because that was down to us. I mean, that first goal that Wolves scored, you had to take your hat off and say fair play to that. It was a banging goal. But the second one they scored, Dyer, he just stood there looking at the fella. He didn't even go at him, nothing. It just... I think we're an easy target in the aspect of, they just love to see us get somewhere and then just break and fall apart because it's just a good joke for everyone and it's just good fun for everyone. Very similar to Arsenal in that way, because people do love to see Arsenal get all hyped up and then all of a sudden just lose it at the last minute or whatever.
Yeah, we know because they bottle it, so that's inevitable. That's what they're going to do.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We're the worst ones for it over the past, 80 years. So,
do you know what? We're actually not. Do you know they've been the top the most and lost it the most? Actually, they're the biggest bottle jobs because when we were going up against Leicester, we were never top. So we technically never actually bottled it. Just saying.
Okay, if you want to see it like that, but
to be fair, over the last few years, I think they're in a better state than us. Certainly, pre-summer they were. Things are slightly changing now. You'd say with Ange at the club, things are changing now. But in the summer, it looked very, very good for them. Hopefully, we can carry on this Ange ride. But they definitely bottled it last season. They were top. That was the league title as well. And they bottled it the season before. I was at the North London derby when there were 6 points in front of us with 3 games to go to get into 4th. Should have been theirs, wrapped up. It's all wrapped up.
Yeah.
They lost. We beat them 3-0 without Romero. Romero got injured pre-game. Romero was injured for the final 3 games.
Was it 3-0 or 3-1?
Yeah.
It was 3-0 or 3-1?
3-0.
No, it's 3-0 because they got someone sent. Remember, I got someone sent off.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Probably Rob Holding, wasn't it? I think it's Rob Holding.
Yeah, Holding,
Yeah. So we've been 3-0, then they lost their last 2 games. I think Palace was one of them, and we won our last 3.
Newcastle. So they went and lost the next game to Newcastle.
Yeah, Newcastle. Yeah.
And what made that hurt even more was the fact that at that point they hadn't qualified for Champions League in about 7 years. So they really did bottle it. But hold my hands up. I didn't think Arsenal were going to react the way they did last season. I didn't think they were going to be in a title race.
No.
But again,
I don't think anybody knew that sort of thing. But
again, bottled it.
Yeah, I mean, last season, I think that with them, I think last season came down to depth. If they would have had enough depth to cover at least that defender, I think they would have took that last year.
Saliba.
But they didn't, and that's what happens.
Saliba's a game changer.
Joe, while I think he's a game changer, I think that actually, I think he's a bit naive still. And I'm not just saying this from a point of view that I hate them, and I hope that they cease to exist at some point because they should go back to Woolwich where they belong. But honestly, I think he is a bit naive sometimes, and I think the players get that
He's
sense
only young.
Yeah, and they kind of, because the team's young, they kind of feed off of that sometimes with him. And I think that emotion and that naivety shows with what they do on the pitch.
Who? Saliba or Arteta?
Just Arteta, and then Arsenal as a team in general. Because when you saw them, them last few games, they just lost the plot with some of the things they were doing, man. And that was down to Arteta as well, I think.
Well, look what we did against Chelsea. We had that on a plate as far as I'm concerned. Like,
no, I agree.
1-0 up, and they didn't know where they were coming. They didn't know whether they were coming or going. And we were the ones who lost our cool.
Yeah, no, it was a battle with the bridge part 2, that was, wasn't it?
That it was,
like
and it was
madness.
It was
just,
as
I said, I thought that second goal counted. I didn't think it was offside. It's very difficult in the stands when we score and everyone's going fucking mad.
I can imagine.
But out of all the VAR decisions, the fans settled on that one. That was a goal. So I felt like that was as well. And as soon as that happened,
when you actually check it out on the cameras, Dyer's was a goal. Because it came off the Chelsea it came off the Chelsea player's head last. But either way,
we would have won the game.
If
that initial onside happened, we would have won the game comfortably, as far as I'm concerned. What made me angry the most with that game wasn't necessarily the sending offs of Romero and Udogie. Of course,
no, was 100% sending
off. Romero should have got sent off before. That thing with the leg was childish. That Beckham thing should have got sent off for that. And Udogie's missile drop kick, I can see that that was a fucking sending off as well. Yeah. And they still got sent off after. That's the problem. So it was naive. Hopefully they learn from that. Udogie's very young. So hopefully they learn from that, because he definitely cost us points. Let's face it.
Yeah, but surely you know it. You don't go in 2-footed like that. I mean, for me, I know he didn't touch Sterling and Sterling went out the way, but for me, even going in for a tackle like that, you should get a red card straight away. Same as I personally believe. I mean, it is opinion that if someone blatantly dives, it's not a yellow card. You send them off straight away. But
That's
they're
very
just two
controversial.
opinions.
That's very well. We know about the only previous sending off we got was with that, wasn't it, Basuma?
Yeah, but that was his second yellow card.
Yeah,
I think you should get. I think he should have been given a red card straight away for that.
Yeah, I don't think that's happened yet. I don't think that's happened yet.
No, it doesn't. You get what the rule is someone gets caught diving, they get a yellow card for it. I think that should get changed. Someone gets caught diving, they get a red card there and then off. See you later, mate. Let's see.
The problem is that's so subjective, and you're actually in attack. To give someone a yellow card for what somebody does in attack is a bit weird in itself. So to give them a sending off when they've got the ball, I agree with it. I hate diving. I do, but.
It is a tricky one sometimes because, like, where I've played football and that, I mean, I was a goalkeeper for a while, but where I was that bit shorter and people didn't like it that I came off my line, I ended up defensive midfield, and I used to love playing defensive midfield, just getting stuck in. I mean, I make myself sound old. That was 20 years ago. That was when you could really have a game of football with someone. But
the Doggy's challenge would have been a good challenge. The one he should have got sent off back then.
Yeah, 20 years ago. But when you are sprinting at full pace and someone just basically even knocks you that little bit, it can send you flying. It really can. And some of them look like an horrendous dive when really it is just that tap that it takes to make you start like rolling, basically. I get it is a bit of a tricky one, but when you can see a blatant one like Basuma's, for me, that should just be a straight red. There you go, mate. Baked potato. See you later.
Yeah, I have to say, and just finally on the refs thing, it annoys me the most because I've only been on here an hour. Dan's been running the show, but I'm telling you now, we've talked about the tactical side of things. We've talked about individual players. That's where our mindset should be, not blaming the referees, because for me, over a season, it does even itself out. It's a little bit too simplistic to say it evens itself out, but look, the Liverpool game, I've never seen a fuck up like that on the pitch or with VAR. That was crazy. Adogi should have been sent off for the missile drop kick the other day. Romero should have been sent off for the kick. It comes and goes. And we're talking about the tactical side. And Ange, midweek, said he's not blaming the referees. And the amount of group chats I've been in, the referee done this, the referee done that. It's lazy. We talk about the tactical side. We're talking about, VDV hurts us because the high line. Madison hurts us because we've got no one to give the ball to get between the lines. That's where the talk needs to be. It's just a waste of air and a waste of breath to talk about the referees, quite frankly. And do you think referees are really going to risk their job for Spurs versus Wolves? Because a lot of people said the referee had a mare. I don't know.
He didn't have a great game. And some decisions he made were stupid, but he didn't cost us a game.
Refs being shit or refs being shit. It's as simple as that for me. That's as simple as that.
Do you know what?
But he did not cost us a game.
If you watch football for long enough, ain't the refs always had those decisions, man, where do you know what I mean? We get like a dodgy decision. Do you know what I'm saying? For me, it hasn't just changed. All we've got now is extra into people deciding these, making these decisions. You know what?
Exactly. But that's what the VAR is meant to do. It's meant to help them out.
Yeah,
if they really fuck up a decision that much.
But it's still subjective, Dan, because it's still humans running it. It's still a human decision. So that's why I'm the same as Tommy. I don't really blame the refs. I don't really do this whole sit down for half hour and blame the referee, man. I'm like, we should just do better, innit? Like, that's the end of it for me.
Yeah, it's true.
You know the managers, the managers are going to try and get the edge by complaining. Of course they are. Look at Sir Alex Ferguson during the game. During the game, he had 3 or 4 minutes added on when it should have been. And it should have been 2 minutes. So, of course, you do it to your benefit. But then post-game, let's talk about the football side of things. It's the only thing we can really change. Yeah. We can't change what the refs do against us. So, we have to get on a bit. And life's too short, quite frankly, to talk about what other people might or might not do. It's just not the way I like to do things. But it's,
I agree totally.
It is what it is. The VAR is shocking. I hate the VAR. I would have kept VAR for the goal line technology. That's it. I wouldn't have messed about with anything else. But it's too late now. Once you're there, it's like the streets. Once you're there, once Big Brother's there, once the cameras are there, there's no going back. You're just going to have to make it as.
I agree.
Streamline it, make it as beneficial as possible.
They're going to have to try and make it work. And to just top it, sort of thing. Basically, what happened with Wolves, we deserved what we got. We deserved it. We bottled that in the last. I mean, the whole game they should have had. They had so many more chances and should have had us anyway. And we did have that bit of luck on our side that they just could not cross or do a corner or whatever, and they just kept messing it up. But by the end, we deserved what we got.
And it really,
that's all I can say.
Let's
with
face
that.
it, I don't want to be pedantic, but it wasn't a great attack. They didn't have their best attacking player this season.
No.
Today.
No.
It wasn't a great attack, so you can only fear for the future.
I think only one corner made it over the first man.
So we know Romero and Van de Ven are not going to be there for Man City. They're not going to be there for the Man City game. So, well, I don't know. That should be fun. But to be fair, Man City are dropping points. They lost to Wolves as well, and they dropped points today against a decent Chelsea side. Actually,
Yeah,
Chelsea,
but the thing is, we all know Man City. The thing that I think people have got to watch out with City at the moment is, where are they? City are usually just hovering around at this time. They don't usually kick into gear until it comes to February, March.
Very true.
And then they kick off. Yeah. And then they go 14 games, like 12 wins, 2 draws and that. And then when they've won the league, they just sit back and lose a couple because they've already done the job. So for me, Man City are already, they're doing better than they usually do.
It's timing, isn't it? It's peak. Where do you peak? They're not anywhere near their peak yet.
No, and they haven't even. Yeah,
it's a marathon. It's a marathon, not a sprint. It's a marathon, not a sprint. It's who's there at the end. And I'll tell you what, in January, they won the treble in the end. It's unbelievable. In January, they sold the best fullback in the league, I think, Cancelo. Incredible player. Right back, left back, even centre mid. They sold him and everyone's like, nah, they ain't got a fucking chance now. Won the treble. Arsenal had it. It was theirs. So, they know how to do things. They're not messing about. It's going to be a very, very, very tricky game against Man City without Van de Ven and Romero and Maddison. I've got a funny feeling Maddison, I think he's out for a month. I think he'll be out for a month to 5 weeks. He is so unbelievably key. If we get Romero and Maddison back, things don't look so bad. They really don't look so bad for that heavy Christmas period where you've got 6 games.
That last game against Wolves, I think one thing that you could definitely say, people are going to say this sounds like a bit of a strange one, but I actually do think a positive in that game was actually Ben Davies. Why? Because he actually did have a good game.
All right, didn't he? He done all right.
Yeah, he got man of the match, and he did have a good game, and it's given me that little bit of hope that hopefully he can at least try that sort of thing for the next game. But he's still going to have Dyer sitting there, so it's still going to be a complete and utter fuck up anyway. But Davies did actually have a good game. I think he was our only player that had a good game. Vicario, he didn't have a good game. He didn't have a bad game. He didn't have much to do. But the 2 goals, he couldn't have really done a lot about. So I think Davies was our only one who actually had a good game.
He did have a good game. But look, same with the defence. 85 minutes. You can play well for 85 minutes, but this is the Premier League. You don't win points after 85 minutes. You got to be there 90, 95 minutes, and that's where we dropped off towards the end. Right, we're going to end the show today. We're going to end the show there. I'm just going to make it to 2 hours, I think. I always like to keep them 2 hours. So we'll just get to the 2 hour point. I want to say a big thank you to Justin, who came on earlier. Big thank you to Mia. And of course, Mia, this is the opportunity to plug your fantastic channel.
If you like what I have to say, I'm a pretty balanced person until someone kind of takes me on, then I do get a bit feisty, I'm not gonna lie. If over at Spurs Between the Lines, I do all different kind of content. I do members call in, so I've got if you're a member, you can come in and call in and have your say. I do match preview, match reviews. I've got a ladies show as well where me, Ellie and Kate are on. So it's nice, just the ladies. We have guests on there as well. So yeah, there's all different content. I do actually keep an eye on the transfers. So I do a lot of transfer videos. We've been linked quite a lot of players actually. So if you go back and look at some of the players we've been linked with, I've got up their stats, give you a bit of information, and then you can have your say, because I like to have the comments and read through. I always read through all my comments as well and respond to everybody. So yeah, it's about having good conversations.
Right, exactly, brilliant. Yeah, we had a good. When I come in, it was the gloves were off with Justin and Mia. I wish I'd got some popcorn before I came. I should have just got some popcorn and stayed off for longer. But I appreciate it, Mia. And of course, you can find me and Dan here in the Hotspur Hood. Next live show for definite will be Tuesday night. We do the N17 effect. We'll have a few guests on there as well. So yeah, please, of course, go over to Spurs Between the Lines. Subscribe. Even if you just subscribe, it helps. It helps everyone. So get over there, subscribe to me, subscribe to us. We're on the road to 3K, and just chuck us a little like if you can. It all makes a difference. So peace out, everyone. Stay classy, Lily Whites.